All right, everybody. It's Sunday night again, and you know what that means. College football after dark is back, and I'm back, John Diadamo, here to help moderate and keep things on track as best as I can, the little bit that I can. And introducing our awesome panel of all stars who are going to be who are all Patreon supporters, and they're all here to talk college football. We got Ben, or AKA Michigan Ben. Thanks for being here,
Hail to the
Ben.
victors.
Hail to the victors. Go blue. We got Jordan Bowman, Clemson.
Hi,
Sorry.
guys.
we got Tim Prangley, USC. We got Will ND, Notre
So
Dame.
happy to have
as
you
we
back,
know.
Mom.
Yeah, I know, right? And of course Tony also on Team Trojan.
We missed you last week.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I heard a lot of dad's gone, so let's go crazy. But we could still go crazy. You know, it's all good. And listen, we are starting off with I have to allow myself occasionally a topic, and in this case, hail to the victors. 45-23 Michigan victory over the Buckeyes. And let me just emphasize a couple of things here. Okay, largest win in Columbus since 1976. First back-to-back win against the Buckeyes since 1999-2000. It was 50 degrees. There was no snow. There was no flu. We had our best player basically run for 6 yards in the whole game. There were no excuses. And we were able to make it happen. Yes, Tony.
John, when I grew up in Michigan, and they taught us a little saying. I don't know if you guys have heard it. It goes, "It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine. It's great to be a Michigan Wolverine."
Oh, yes. And we already have the Buckeyes saying, "Oh, God," in chat. But you know what? We've earned this. We had to take
They got to eat it this week.
365 days of Buckeye. We're going to kick your ass. It didn't matter if it was a show about Michigan or not, or Ohio State or not, is literally every single chat. If it was about Iowa, somebody was in there saying, we're going to beat the Wolverines. I mean, that's how intense it was. So it's very cathartic. So now with this said, I'm going to bring this to the panel. Does Michigan now own the Big Ten?
Until further notice.
Yeah.
And by the way, Mark Rogers, the king of Ohio State himself, Mr. Buckeye Blood, said so in a show yesterday night. He said until Michigan is dethroned, they rule the Big Ten.
Absolutely.
And we will take it.
Ben, how do you feel after all the years that that Michigan has had to put up with this?
Well, I'm going to tell you something, John. It's starting to hurt from smiling all the time.
I know, right?
Oh man, I am loving it. I'm loving it. I can't tell you how much I'm loving it. And I'm excited. I'm excited about moving on. I think we have a strong shot for the Natty.
Yeah, and one thing to just point out about the game is that it's not like Knowles wasn't trying. Like here's what I want to just make sure everybody understands. Like Knowles was brought in, was paid $2 million to specifically take on the Michigan Wolverines, and his game plan was take away the run. And in the first half, they were pretty successful at that. I mean, for a decent chunk of the first half, we had like 1 rushing yard, 6 rushing yards. But what they weren't counting on was that J.J. McCarthy was actually going to throw some balls, and they were going to get caught. I don't think they were counting on that, or at least as many as we were able to do with Cornelius Johnson actually coming alive and doing what we were hoping he was going to do all season. And we actually got to see some deep balls, so that was pretty cool. But like Knowles was scheming against our run. They watched the Illinois game that I was at in the 10-degree wind chill, watching the game at the Big House, and it was a struggle bus, man. And we couldn't get anything going on the pass game.
Well, I'll
Yeah.
say it was really as far as Knowles is concerned.
Yeah.
To be able, so a lot of teams have tried to take the run away from Michigan, and they probably don't have the horses to do it, the players to do it. But what a defensive coordinator is supposed to do is take away what another team does very well, and he was, for the most part of the game, able to do that. When you do that, though, obviously, when you're selling out, it's putting you guys up front, doing cover zero sometimes. If someone can break through, you could take the top off it, or like it happened a couple of times, you get the edge and that running back's gone. There's no one there behind them to make the play. So for the most part, they were successful. And I was talking to Mark about this, and you got to credit Knowles for that. I mean, we can say that what happened in the game, but he did what he needed to do. Maybe he needs to shore up that secondary a little bit more so those guys can play some better man defense. There's a lot of things that could be done. I think that they were in the game for the most part into the third quarter, but then it just showed. It's kind of like that dam. You could hold back. What's that proverbial story about holding the water back or whatever? You could do it for a while, but then the deluge is just going to come through at some point. And that's, I think, what we saw.
You sound like J.J. McCarthy did in his press conference.
Yeah,
the
man,
pressure's
he
there,
likes
and the pipes are just eventually going to burst.
The meditation, Miss Bob Marley reincarnated.
Close
Absolutely.
to that same analogy there, Tim.
Well, that's really what you think of, and that's if you watch that game, that's what happened. They held back that dam for 3 quarters valiantly, but we got to remember also we can't really crack on Knowles and the OSU defense. Your offense is going to give people trouble, right? I mean, you guys are a prolific running team. You guys have a great line, and you have you've got a great offense. So, I mean, I guess I'm going to say my hat's off to them for keeping it a game that I think that if they hadn't done that, I think the game would have been a lot different. So I think actually he did his job, and he did a pretty good job trying to holding up. And who knows? The knock on McCarthy or the JJ was the fact he couldn't make the long ball, right? It was like that's the weaker part of his game, am I right? And so they forced you guys to make the plays, and you guys did. And who knows? A couple of those plays go their way. It might be talking about a different game.
It's true.
Okay, sorry, I took that too far. No, but at least it would have been a closer game.
No, it was 5 plays that made that defined that game. But to be fair, I know people have been listening to some people have been listening to YouTubes all weekend. They've heard a lot about this game. So I want to bring up a question that I haven't heard as much on some of the shows. I look at the recruiting, and I already see 4-star O lineman Luke Hamilton committed to Michigan the other day. 3-star DB Cameron Calhoun, I believe is how you pronounce it. So we're already getting some recruits as a result of this. And I actually want to go to Jordan, because Jordan has recent experience with Dabo kind of going over top and then winning 2 national titles. When you start winning at a larger level that it has than the previous 5-10 years, what does that do for recruiting for your program?
Oh, I mean, it's everything. I mean, that's a great example. I mean, when you really think about it, because I mean, if you look at Michigan's recruiting over the last few years, they're kind of hanging in that same realm that Dabo and Clemson were hanging around when they were winning those national titles. Excuse me for a second. I am about to die. These sniffles are about to kill me. 1 second.
You're good, but that was an interesting example to me because of that being a recent rise in after years of kind of not getting quite to the mountaintop. Then you have 2 national titles within 3 years. Right now, obviously, Michigan hasn't won a national title yet, but a Big Ten championship, and now knocking on the door of another Big Ten championship, 2 wins against Ohio State, and now getting recruits from Ohio. That's something.
I was in Pasadena last time we won the national championship.
Oh, there you go. But yeah, it really does change how you're viewed in the national landscape. I mean, especially when Clemson got over the top that first time, that first national championship, and that was their second straight playoff appearance, and just being able to sell that to recruits that you are the program that's on the rise, and it was coinciding with at the same time with Florida State starting to begin their decline. And so, I'm not saying that Ohio State is Florida State in this analogy, because I don't think Ohio State is like going anywhere. But selling that, hey, we're the big dogs in the conference now. We can beat these guys consistently. I mean, it really changes the view that recruits have of you. And Clemson's being, since that first national title. I mean, after they won that first one, they eventually had 2 consecutive top classes. The only 2 times they've had top 5 classes in school history. So, I mean, I think especially if Michigan gets over the top this year, makes the national championship game, maybe possibly wins it, that's definitely on the table. You can only imagine what that's going to do.
That sounds so crazy to me still. Like, it's like I'm so used to being in the doghouse and like the Brady Hoke, like, let's clap it out era and everything. And now
the PSD from Michigan's previous few years.
I can't even. Well, thank you, Zach T, for your $5 super chat. And I did forget to mention at the start, my bad. If you want to get your comment heard and you want to get a question asked to the panel or anything else, throw us a super chat, even $2, whatever. Like, it'll help get you to the top, because these comment sections tend to fly, and we do our best, but super chat's definitely the best way. So Zach asks, wasn't easy, but the rematch is happening as advertised. Go Utes. Going to the game, Tim and Tony?
No, but Rick's going to be there.
Yeah, Rick is going to be there, which will be a lot of fun. So we'll hopefully have LBC live from the game. I'll be in Florida. I think Tim's going to be back in California. But Zach, are you going? Tell us in the chat, because you should. It's going to be awesome. I wish I was.
Yeah, Zach's in Salt Lake City is right down the way. I mean, it's not that far from LA either, but it's right next to you. Yeah, you
should go. It's gonna be a lot of fun. And to the Utah fans, by the way, we love you guys. Like, you guys are awesome. There are fewer, like, more devoted, like, really cool fan bases than Utah, and no school has done more to, like, seize the horns of realignment better than all the amazing stuff that's gone on at Utah. Like, I have so much respect for Kyle Whittingham and everybody there. Like, go Utes. I mean, don't go this week. Lose this week, please. But aside from this week, you guys can go win the Rose Bowl. It'll be great.
It was a tale of 2 cities, right? We brought Colorado and Utah in. Utah did the Pac-12 proud. Colorado, not so much.
Colorado's so bad.
Not so much.
Hey, but if they get Coach Prime somehow,
that just seems like such an interesting fit, doesn't it?
It seems to me like not at all a fit.
But it would, the memes would be incredible.
Oh, Ralphie and Coach Prime? I can't even imagine Ralphie and Coach Prime. Like, it'll work. Maybe he'll race him out. I don't know. I mean, it'd be great it might give them the spark of energy that they need. I mean, we're gonna talk more about Pac-12 just had 2 massive coaching changes in the past day. But
talk about a culture shift going from
Jackson.
Going from Whittingham to Coach Prime. That would be
yeah. That would be something. I do see some people in the chat who have reflected what I've heard from Buckeye fans all day, which is
fire Ryan Day.
Fire Ryan Day and bring back Urban. Now,
oh, Lord have mercy.
I think that's silly and ridiculous. And I'm somebody who, has no love for Ryan Day whatsoever on the planet. But I will say, like, he's won every game except twice against Michigan. And I understand that Ohio State culture has beat Michigan, but, like, sometimes
Oregon and Purdue as well.
What's that?
Oregon and Purdue as well, right? We're talking about Day's losses.
No, I'm talking about Big Ten. So
within the Big
yes,
Ten, yeah.
You can add.
Okay. Sorry.
Big Ten specifically. It's
Did
been
he lose
2.
to Purdue in 19?
No, he didn't. No,
that was
they were undefeated.
Urban.
That was Urban's last year that they lost to Purdue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Plus the cracker.
But Ryan Day was there.
I just
he was
think
there.
that
He was the quarterback.
some like
offensive coordinator.
how are you like? I understand being frustrated, but this is a guy who has won almost every single game he's been in. He's gotten you to a national championship game. He's won a he got the Clemson monkey off of Ohio State's back, right? That Clemson always beat Ohio State. Well, Ohio State won
Don't remind me.
2020. I know, but hey, like he did it, right? So I just think it's a little premature, and maybe it's a bit of a knee-jerk reaction to say bring back Urban Meyer.
Do you have West Virginia friends? Because if you're trying to understand like irrational behavior of like panic attack, like I love my West Virginia friends, but like I've never seen like such an unhinged fan base every time they lose, and Ohio State kind of reminds me a little bit of that. And I love, like I said, I love my West Virginia friends, but like anytime they lose a game, they're in a panic, and every time they win, they're on their way to the playoffs. And it's like Ohio State, I think, is just not used to this losing.
That's exactly it. When you lose 1 or 2 games a year for over a long period of time, or just seems like forever, it's really difficult to know how to handle a loss, right? Some of us have more experience than others, and we all know about life. Life's all about experience. So,
well, I would gladly play devil's advocate on this topic of yours,
Sure,
John. Gladly, happily. I might not believe it completely, but I would not. I mean, hey, Harbaugh said it, I think, aptly when he made that reference to being on third base thinking you hit a triple.
yeah.
And I mean, that's where you can look at. Ryan Day doesn't have the track record that Jim Harbaugh has, for one. So people want to compare the two, because it seems that there always are, because in this rivalry this happened. But Ryan Day was handed the keys to a very, very successful program, and
it's kept it successful.
What?
He's kept it successful.
Kept it successful, but in Buckeye Nation, losing to Michigan twice is not successful. Twice in a row is not successul. I mean,
And look, I get what Sensei TV. I'm sorry if I mispronounced that. But you were saying, we have the best wide receiver in the country, and we threw one deep ball all game. Are you serious? I mean, that's the sentiment that people are saying, and I have to agree. Like, this is like CJ Stroud can throw deep balls. It seems like it will. It seems. I mean, in the last game, he was throwing video game passes to Olave and Wilson and JSN. And this year, it did seem like they tried to go more of a run-heavy concept, or at least a little bit more balanced. And I understand the need to do that and to keep your offense, kind of keep the defense guessing as far as what you're going to do. But I was a little surprised that you have the best wide receiver in the country, and you're not utilizing him as much as.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
I think I know why. So Marvin Harrison Jr. is great. Like, he's probably the best wide receiver in the country right now. But the other guys that they have, it isn't what it used to be. They only have one guy that's as good as Chris Olave, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Jamison Williams. The wide receivers have gotten worse at Ohio State this year. They haven't gotten to the level.
they've been injured though, right? Will, I mean, they've been.
I would
dinged
say
up.
Egbuka's been almost. I mean, Egbuka has almost the yardage.
I'm
of
saying this from
Harris.
what I saw from Ohio State people. This is what Ohio State people are saying.
I'm
I
saying
haven't watched all their games, but this is just like they aren't happy with what the wide receiver room is right now compared to what it was. I know they're spoiled. So
I mean, you have 3 basically first round draft picks last year, so that's tough to replicate.
Yeah.
Well,
Let's just hope that. Here's the thing.
yeah.
On my point on Day is this.
Yeah.
It could he be? I think Ohio State fans, you got to hope he's not Helfrich 2.0. Is all I'm going to say to you. We started out hot, coming off this. The cupboard was full.
Chip Kelly,
and
right?
and then it degrades. Now I'm gonna be honest. This was a good Michigan. Before we start calling the panic stations, this is a really good Michigan team. It's their only freaking loss. I think we should focus on the fact that some of the Ohio State fans are getting a little bit, over their skis on this stuff. And when we say, oh, he he's had some losses. The teams has he had a bad loss yet? That's where you start. That's where you go into Helfrich's zone, right? Where you have this great thing rolling, and then you start getting these head scratcher losses. To my knowledge, Day hasn't lost a game that he was supposed to win. Oh, sorry, he hasn't lost a game where he was like, you know, they were the odds-on huge favorite to win. You know, he hasn't lost to like a. Wait, hold on,
what were they favorite? What was the spread against Oregon? What was the spread against Oregon? Yeah, because that's
I think that was a 14-point spread.
Remember, guys, though, a 14. What Vegas decides which team's better is not actually what the better team
obviously,
is.
But I'm talking about as far as expectation, as far as perception, all that. That's probably the closest. Thing. It wasn't a bad. Oregon wasn't
14 and a half.
Oregon wasn't bad, but so don't get me wrong. But that was probably the closest thing you could say was a game that Ohio State, that Ryan Day lost, that he was quote unquote supposed to win. But he hasn't lost to any unranked teams. He hasn't lost to teams that, you know, are vastly inferior as far as talent.
Next year's a big year for Ryan Day, though. Next year is a big year. Because if they start losing those games, if they start losing like the Penn State and Michigan, and then another team like a Maryland, then maybe he is.
If they start losing to Penn State and Maryland, the pitchforks are going to be coming out.
The thing with Helfrich, actually, he had two like 11-win seasons. He had 11-2 season and a 13-2 season. We went to the playoffs, and then it kind of just it was weird. They went from Chip Kelly to having like, you know, a pretty good 11-2 season to taking it to the playoffs. So it actually looked like for a while there was an uptick, and then it just fell off the cliff. And I agree with what Mark's saying here. This is Day's 5th season. So it's not like he was just like came in. These are all his guys. And it's not like he's living off of Myers recruits or anything. You know what I mean? So it's not that situation. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying like a Helfrich situation. And I think this isn't that case. I think that he has his own players in there. They're still winning, and they lost to the number 2 team in the country. So people calling for them to be fired, it just seems it reeks of being spoiled, is what it does. Those are your spoiled fans.
So we have
every single game.
We have Ron here in the chat saying the Bucks will be back. Define what back is, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's very plausible that they next year rally and go to the playoff. I think it's very possible. I think everybody's over. I think some Buckeye fans, not all. Like there are some level-headed ones, Mark being one of them, right?
There's a lot of great, there's awesome Buckeye
Look
fans.
at those cupcakes they lost to, though, Mark.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah, he played nobody.
Those look like those.
Nobody.
Those look like those SEC orphanages from November. You know, like Austin P, Clemson, Bama, Oregon, Michigan.
And you got to remember, what was Michigan ranked at the beginning of last year?
I mean, those guys aren't South Carolina or anything, but you know.
But here's the reality, Tim. You made a good point.
There's no. It's not like there's Vandy on there.
Like Michigan is a really, really good team this year, and I'll be honest, I thought we were completely screwed when Blake Corum couldn't play. I thought we were done because I didn't think Edwards was going to have anything in him because of his injury. I thought he would maybe run for 20, 30 yards, and I was like, can JJ can we actually pull this off and make deep? Because I hadn't seen it since like Hawaii and UConn. You know, those barn burners of a game against Hawaii and UConn. That was like the last time we were banging deep balls left and right. And I was like, are we going to see that again? Because if we do, then Michigan could win. But otherwise, So I was worried, but Michigan they proved a lot of doubters wrong, and JJ was able to make it happen.
Well, do you guys, the Wolverine guys, do you know? So do you guys run a lot? I wasn't been paying attention. I did watch this game, but do you guys run a lot of 12 and 13 personnel? I mean, you guys wear those big packages. Sometimes you even bring in maybe a 6th lineman. Does Harbaugh still do that stuff?
Oh yeah, like a 6 lineman jumbo package.
Yeah. And mainly he does it with the tight ends, using tight ends, and until we get down to the red zone. But yeah.
They'll use Carson Barnhart as a 6th lineman.
And we've been lacking tight ends a little bit.
So here's my point I'm trying to make is I remember it was really hard. This was really difficult for teams in the Pac-12 who had on one side, I think I talked about this on Mark's show, On one side, you got the blur offense. On the other side, you got this Harbaugh guy bringing in like 6 linemen, 7 linemen, down linemen, you know what I mean, and under plays with the tackle eligible, just doing all this weird stuff that's playing power football with Gerhardt slamming his big back
formation,
him, right? And doing this stuff. And on the other side, you got to prepare for these quick, smaller spread right offenses. And it causes a lot of trouble as a defensive coordinator to be able to handle both these things. And I think sometimes, just like in sports, one of my favorite things to say, and I mean it because I think it's an axiom in sports, is if you find a team that's really good at doing something that the other team isn't good at, it's about matchups. You may not be the better team. You might be the better team, sorry. But if they're really good at what you're not good at, they could upset you. You know, they can come in there and beat you. And so it's hard. It seems like Michigan lately is a very tough matchup for Ohio State. Ohio State's got all the players in the world, but are their personnel set up to take on that massive Michigan rush in? And that's why my hat goes off the Knowles for at least holding you guys for 3 quarters. Do you know what I mean? That is coaching. And so, you know, I'm sure they're going to make some decisions and personnel. I'm sure they're going to switch some things up, and it's the balance will come back to the force at some point. You know what I mean? But you guys should take advantage, be happy about your win, and know that you guys have done the right thing.
And I'm going to enjoy every bit of this ride while I'm on it, you know?
We have a thank you, S. Hobson, for your super chat. Ohio State with 1 loss will be number 5 in CFP, correct?
Not so sure.
I think they'll be 5 currently.
Yeah,
but if USC and or TCU lose their championship game, they could get
out for the SEC bias, guys. Watch out.
I was going to say to you, if we're going off,
man.
if we're going to go off what's been happening so far this year, boy, oh boy, that committee sure does love themselves some 2-loss SEC. That's all I'm going to say.
You know what? Hey, you know what's better than a team? Tim, you know what's even better than a 2-loss SEC team? A 3-loss SEC team.
Might as well just go for broke and just bring in.
Just put in South Carolina versus Vandy straight to the championship.
Vandy, yeah.
Well,
why
the
not?
thing is, though, I mean, to be fair to if they do put Bama ahead of Ohio State, they have this argument. Bama lost their 2 games all in the last second.
Yeah.
Ohio
On
State
the road.
got smashed by their 1 loss. So
in their biggest game.
I know, but here we start getting into this idea of which teams are better than which teams. Who's better than Penn State? Penn State's better than LSU. Tennessee's better than this. So we start jumping around playing all these games. But at the end of the day, one team has 1 loss. The other one has 2 losses. I get it. I totally get both arguments. But at some point, we got to get we have to get some normalcy. And unfortunately, that's what makes college football wonderful.
Let's be real clear about one thing. They're all better than LSU, who lost to the worst team that there is in Texas A&M.
Yeah. And
everyone
whenever
you say Texas A&M,
you got
Texas A&M.
Keep a mental note. Keep a mental note, because later we're going to be coming back and asking everybody what their top 4 to 6 teams are. So just keep a mental note of all this. But I wanted to get to a topic that I think some of you will really like.
It's not LSU.
So, Caleb Williams is now the definitive Heisman frontrunner after a really great performance against Notre Dame. 4 touchdowns, including 3 on the ground. Tim, let's start with you. How do you feel about Caleb and Lincoln Riley's offense in this stretch?
I was talking to Ben before the show about Caleb Williams, and I've been following USC football my entire life. I grew up on the campus. My dad's going to grad school, and I've seen some really good quarterbacks at USC. This young man, and I'm kind of choking it back because I remember some good Carson Palmer games. I remember some really amazing Leinart games. You know, I even remember a couple really good, that Rose Bowl that the Sanchez had. I mean, we've had some really good college quarterbacks. This guy blows them all away. Rodney Peete. I was barely old enough to understand football, but I was following football. I knew it. I didn't know the ins and outs. But Rodney Peete had some great games. This dude is next level. I don't know. I would not want to be a defender trying to make a tackle. There's that one play that they kept showing over on ESPN all the time is where he steps up the pocket, then he's a full roundabout 360, then he runs back through the pocket again, then goes to his left and picks up about 20 yards. It looked like, I'm not old enough, but I've seen video of Fran Tarkenton running from sideline to sideline, was like 30 yards, and then drops off for a 10-yard pass or like that. That's what it looked like. It looked like a bunch of guys, and these aren't. This front seven for Notre Dame, I mess with Will, but it's a pretty solid front seven. And he was running circles, literally running circles around them. How do I feel about Caleb Williams? Just give him the trophy right now. That's what I'm saying.
He's been amazing. And the other thing is, remember the guys, this team was 4-8.
Yeah.
Last year. 4-8, and he has single-handedly led this team in a way that is just, I mean, he leads them with his feet, he leads them with his spirit, he leads them on the sidelines. Like, I mean, the dude is like 19. Or is he thinking he might
is
be
he
20
really?
now?
No, he's 20. He's got to be 20.
now,
Did he finally
right?
get to be 20?
Yeah, I think he's well, whatever. He's 2019, same thing, really. I know I asked my elbow at 19, so it's at 20.
Yeah,
and 20 officially.
He's 20. Okay, one of the most just amazing players, amazing athlete. I mean, he's still another year from being able to go in the draft. He's too young. And just I've never seen anything like it. And the other thing is, I don't see anybody else that has had that kind of an impact on any other team. Blake Corum, before he got hurt, certainly probably close, if not equal, but nobody else. And so I think it's not only does he completely deserve it, but there's nobody else that's that close. And I think you put the eighth jersey in the peristyle.
Yeah, at this point, I mean, if Corum had played an Edwards level game, then I think you could make a case either way. But with him on the sideline, it's very sad because he was racking up numbers equivalent to Ingram and even Derrick Henry at times, the last two running back Heisman winners. So it's unfortunate, but at this point, I think due to the injury, I don't see who else gets it other than Caleb.
Although my most devoted Michigan friend, who just rabid maize and blue, said, if we can have last night, he said, if we can have today's game in Columbus, just take the Heisman. I don't even care.
Yeah, there was a Twitter graphic that came out, and they were putting together the numbers for USC's other two Heisman quarterbacks, Carson and Leinart, and all the numbers were similar in a way. So one thing stuck out. It was the fact that this guy, do you know, Tony, how many touchdowns he's accounted for, rushing and passing? I don't even know. He set the record basically against Notre Dame.
Yeah,
he set the record,
the all-time record
at USC for touchdowns. And the dude only has 3 interceptions. And really, one of them wasn't on him. So he has 2 legitimate interceptions.
Mark says 44.
44. You know what I mean? That itself in Power 5 football is pretty amazing. And he had a tough test. He didn't really play that great against Oregon State, who I think has a great secondary. But he did last night, which made up for it. I got to see him. It was kind of questionable. Well, you know, he faced a really good secondary at Oregon State, and he had a night. Well, he faced I believe you have a pretty good secondary, Will, and he did a great job last night. And the thing about him that's so amazing is not just the numbers; it's how he gets the numbers. And the thing, you know, because we're the Pac-12 and nobody watches us, because I don't blame you. Our games are on at 3:00 in the morning, whatever. You guys don't see this guy run. I don't mean running, rolling out to his left. Dead sprint going to his left as a right-handed quarterback, coming back across his body and throwing a strike right into the back of the end zone to a dive with a window probably about this big, the size of a football, for a touchdown, a meaningful touchdown. It's what he's done and how he's done it and how consistently he's done it. So it was going to be hard for anyone. I think Corum is awesome. I think CJ Stroud is awesome. This was his year. You know, this was just he was just that good this year. So it would have been difficult to unseat him.
Well, also, you know, I called you guys before the season started to go 11-1, and people said I was crazy, but I just watch football and I pay attention, right? What I saw Caleb do to relieve Spencer Rattler at Oklahoma and the rest of that season and the bowl game, I knew he was going to come into USC and immediately elevate the offense with Lincoln Riley's scheme, like immediately. And they knew each other. They knew like this is not a new, like they had that Oklahoma time for him to learn that scheme. So between that and also the fact that Grinch's defenses statistically have gone up every single year except for Oklahoma's last year, but every other year they've gone up statistically, right? From his first year at Oklahoma. So I mean, put the two together. Is it a stretch 11-1 prediction? Okay, maybe a little bit, but I went for it because I saw the schedule, saw the pieces. Like this could easily be 11-1, and you drop to a Utah or a Notre Dame or one of those types of teams or UCLA.
And that's what we thought, though. But see, you probably didn't watch as much USC football as Tony and I watched last year. That's why Tony and I were saying 8-4. And when you said 11-1, we're like, you're out of your freaking mind. No way they're doing that. Which just makes the turnaround. And I agree.
So John,
part of it.
There's something they do this year. It's very different. They did not do this last year. There's a very new thing that happens in football. Again, USC has not done for several years. It's called tackling. And catching.
Oh, right.
Running.
Right.
You left out blocking. Yeah, blocking.
Blocking. These are new things that Lincoln Riley has brought.
Basically verbs. We didn't do verbs last year.
Yeah, we didn't do verbs. There are no verbs other than losing. Losing, that's a verb.
That was a verb. Yes, that's true.
Well, it seems everybody's now happy with the exchange because y'all are happy, 11-1, maybe a playoff appearance. Georgia Southern's happy. Clay Helton's winning over there. So
Oklahoma Twitter seems very happy too. They don't at all seem like they all need counseling.
But remember, Tony,
no medication is needed in Oklahoma. No Xanax.
Oklahoma Twitter is not Oklahoma fans. This community has the best
Oklahoma fans are awesome
around.
people.
Yeah.
And other friends like Boom to the Sooners, Shoelace Sooner. You guys are awesome. We're just teasing you based on like the message board idiots.
The Twitter guys. They had it coming to them.
Oklahoma. Like, I have so many friends who went to OU and they're awesome. And I kind of feel bad for them because they're having a bit of a rough year, and it does not help that we're having as good a year as we're having.
Yeah, that doesn't help.
Because I feel bad because Oklahoma fans are good fans.
Absolutely.
Well, so who are the four people going to be then? Because I guess they have it, so where they're always the downtown athletic club's always inviting four. So
well, other than Caleb, Blake Corum's going. I would assume
DJ Stroud
and Bryce Young.
Bryce Young, you think?
Or
he's having
number four.
What about the
That's an
running
open
back
question.
for Illinois?
Oh no! What about the TCU quarterback? Hold on.
Oh yeah,
Max Duggan.
How about forget? Huh?
Max Duggan.
Yeah, he should be there. He definitely has to be there.
Drake.
He's having a great
year.
year.
Saying.
Yeah. We'll see how the ACC championship goes. Drake May is. He hasn't had the best couple of weeks.
This last performance wasn't his best, correct?
No. Well, yeah, this last one and the Georgia Tech game 2 weeks ago were neither were vintage Heisman performances. But hey, but on the season he's been phenomenal. So if he wins the ACC championship, that could go a long way in at least solidifying the spot.
Mike Ford, you're leaving Duggan out. I just don't. I mean, I just think he needs to be there. I mean, I know it's not. So the Heisman Trophy, right? I wish it'd come. I mean, does someone have the actual definition of what it's going to be? Because if there's an MVP, if we're talking about MVPs, Duggan is up there.
It's to the outstanding player.
Oh, then it's Williams. Let's go. Anyway, next topic. No, I'm just kidding.
Did anybody see
USC has been quoting it extensively on social media this week. The actual definition.
And character has something to do with it too. So
yeah, it does. Like character and Caleb was. I mean, as does Max. Max Duggan's supposed to be an amazing guy. But the other interesting thing, by the way, about the Heisman is I don't know if you guys have noticed this, but in a lot of the in a lot of the promotional stuff, USC is referring to number 13 as the 8th Heisman, which means they are subtly reclaiming
Goddamn right.
number 7.
He may give it back, but he won it. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's what they're saying is he gave it back, but he won. And it's very kind of like soft. USC handled its Heismans in a really interesting way. They only celebrate them with the numbers of the players, and they take kind of an English soccer attitude, like our fans know who they are. I think it has to do a little bit with we don't want to put number 32's name on anything, because the whole.
Well, is that tied into USC's thing about not putting the last names on the jerseys, just like Notre Dame, same thing?
We do say so. I will tell you that when I was a prospective student, so a couple of years after the OJ murders, they still hadn't removed his name from everything. So we did kind of adopt that philosophy.
It was an awkward time, Tony. It was an awkward time.
A little bit retroactively. It's a good policy. It is in line with the whole we don't put our names on the jerseys, but we did change the height a little bit retroactive.
I want to ask if any of you guys saw the post comments from CJ Strauss after the game.
Oh yeah. Oh, I was inhaling that stuff, man.
Yeah, of course.
Oh yeah.
Chat. But did you think that he seemed to be blaming his team in a nice way?
Well, he definitely mentioned something about he wanted to go for it on 4th and 5 or 4th and 6.
Well, that was a question they kind of asked him about about that 4th and 6 when he wanted to go. I think.
What was the yardage, time, and score on that 4th and 6? Can you remind me? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
No, it was in the second half, right? Towards the end of the second half.
I'll look it up.
But anyways, the point was, it seemed like he was like, "Oh, it's on me," but then it seems like I don't know if he meant to call out his defense, and maybe he got himself in a position where he kind of called him out, and then he was like, "But it's on me." But then he did almost the same thing to his receivers, like they got to catch the ball, but it's my fault. It was like it's my fault. They got to catch the ball, my fault, kind of thing. And I wasn't really, I didn't know what to take from that. I didn't know if he was calling them out and trying not to seem like he was calling out, or if he just didn't really mean to do that. And I just was wondering, anybody in the chat thought that same thing, or wonder what you thought, John? If anybody has any thoughts on it, let me know in the chat. And
he was calling out his receivers for not making catches. Is that what you said?
Yeah, he mentioned it. He said there's some catches that needed to be made.
Those are the kind of comments. Anyone's ever played on a team, right? Those are the kind of comments that need to happen in the locker room, not the press conference.
What I thought was interesting was when he said, "This game does not define us," which I'm like, well, it almost sounded like, well, it's not as important, as like everybody in Ohio thinks it is, right? So that one scratched my head a little bit, but overall, I kind of feel for feel for the guy a little bit.
Me too. And I actually think he played a great game. Hard. Yeah. Yeah. And he did mention about the fans booing him when he came, and how he don't think that they're gonna treat him well over the situation, but he said he played his heart out, and I thought he played a great game. He threw some passes in that game that were amazing, and that coverage was tight. Like he couldn't have put the ball like a foot variation where he put the ball, and I thought he made some great plays.
Well, wait, hold on, Ben. You sound surprised. He's a California quarterback. Of course, he's going to do that.
Yeah. Hey, well, if Ohio State fans,
a lot for quarterbacks out there in California, I swear.
If Ohio State fans, if Ohio State fans don't want him,
Clemson is taking offers.
There's the weather's real nice in Clemson this time of year.
Yeah.
Not as much snow. Yeah.
Yeah, there's some nicer places, nicer weather. There's a few programs that could use his service.
Have they been to Hilton Head? They'll give him a house there on Kiowa Island or whatever.
Oh yeah, I can imagine, man. Hey, Hilton Head is always nice. It's always nice. Just think about it. But you know,
Absolutely.
first, a certain someone would have to actually want to take transfers, but that's a whole different conversation.
Sure is better than Tyler Buckley.
Well, we had some other unbeatens too. We had Georgia stay alive, and TCU
Did anyone watch that game?
destroying Iowa
Be
State.
honest. Did anyone watch that game? Did anyone watch Georgia Tech?
I did. I was
I'm not
flipping
gonna
back
lie, I
to
did.
it when I saw Georgia take the lead, but once
No,
Georgia
don't lie.
scored, I stopped.
When Georgia Tech scored, I scored first. I turned it on. A shout out to Tyson Pumachon, former Clemson quarterback. He scored Georgia Tech's first touchdown of the game, so that was cool. But after that, it was after the first half, it was a bloodbath. So, but yeah, not a really pretty game for Georgia. But hey, this is just kind of what it is. You can't really take much from it.
I think we're going to have to see how they do it in the SEC championship to really get another sense.
No one's
Like,
ever
they had
really been
a
able to
great
give me a
win
good
against
answer.
Tennessee.
No one's ever really been able to give me a good answer. The games I've watched Georgia play, they look disgustingly awesome and dominant. But I didn't watch this game, obviously, and I didn't watch the Missouri game, and I did not watch the Kent State games. Does anyone know what happened in those games?
Georgia's offense they just have. I mean, the Georgia's offense has been pretty good on the whole of the year, but they just have their lapses. They just have moments where it's they just kind of sputter. Red zone execution, it was poor from what I saw. It's not like they weren't moving the ball. It's just poor execution in the red zone and guys just not necessarily making plays when they get down there. And Georgia's a really that they're not a highly explosive team. They run off of timely passes. Todd Monken does a great job of scheming his guys open and getting the ball to their playmakers. But when they get down, but when they get down, sometimes, and it's not every game, but sometimes they just have a tendency to kind of struggle there. So that's kind of what I noticed. I don't know if it's a trend or something that bigger, but it's definitely something to keep note of as
I noticed that last year actually with Stetson Bennett with his RPOs was doing horrible, and then they come in play Michigan, and he's like they ran like 15 RPOs and just killed us, and ran them perfect. So I think Stetson Bennett can be on fire some nights and kind of other nights.
Real quick, Joey just made a good point about Mark's Amazon link. So I just used it myself for my Black Friday shopping the other day. It's really, really, really easy to just click that link in the description, or any of the mods usually post it. And it really does help the channel. Most of us are on Amazon anyway to get stuff and make some bulk purchases or whatever. Just pop that link in there. Gives Mark a little extra appreciation for everything that he does all week to make this place what it is. So just that would be awesome if you could consider doing that. Rhino
I
Hunter.
think it's impressive that Todd Monken really what he's been doing with that offense. I know they aren't the best offense, but they always seem to get it done. If you watched the game, you wouldn't think that these guys put the stats that they do, but Stetson Bennett still throws for a ton of yards every game. And they don't have the best skill guys on offense. Their defense is really good, but their offense, the talent isn't that good. So just for it to keep putting up these numbers and getting these wins, I don't know. I think he's pretty underappreciated as an offensive line.
Todd
I do too.
Monken. I've always said Todd Monken got a bad rap from his time with Freddie Kitchens. Remember, Freddie's the one who calls those 4th and 9 run plays, not Todd Monken. And he deserved a chance. And he's obviously coached a national championship team, a national championship winning offense, and they're on track to have another playoff run and maybe another national title appearance or win. So he's doing something right. So it looks like we do have our special guest backstage right now. So we're about to go into our topic on coaching carousel. And there's been so many coaching moves the last literally 24 to 48 hours. Coaches being hired, coaches resigning, and we're going to talk about it all. But the first one is Luke Fickell. Semi-breaking news at this point. Luke Fickell is officially the Wisconsin head coach. And I thought, I don't know about Wisconsin, but I do know that one of our friends, Joey Foster, knows somebody who does, and that's Jay Sorgi from KYW News Radio, who spent over 20 years in the Wisconsin media sphere. And we thought we could get his take on this. So I believe he's backstage.
Hey, how are all of you doing?
Hey, Jay.
What's
Thank you
up?
for having us. Thank you for having me. The blast.
Absolutely, we are thrilled that you're able to come on after what I'm sure was a pretty how that I haven't been paying attention to the game tonight, but
The Green Bay Packers played a heck of a lot better than I thought that they were going to. The Packers offense with an injured Aaron Rodgers put up 33 points on Philly, who's got an outstanding defense. But then let me do some very fast math here. The Philadelphia run game gained 363 yards on the ground. Eagles won 40-33.
Okay. Well, hey, listen. For an injured Aaron Rodgers, like the fact that it was close is I think good. So for those of you who didn't watch Golden Blue Dude earlier, we obviously had you on that, and that was a great time.
Thank you.
There's a question that just I thought about, and it's like, okay, so Luke Fickell has been at Cincinnati. He got Cincinnati to the playoffs as a G5, first G5 to ever go to the playoffs. That was awesome. But because of the move to the Big 12, it was rumored that the only job he would be willing to consider is the Ohio State job. And then we hear about this, and I thought it was kind of out of left field when I first heard the news. But from your knowledge of the kind of football sphere over there, Barry Alvarez, all that stuff, could you just share like what kind of went into the decision?
I was not necessarily privy to the whole process. I don't think that there are many reporters who were, because this came out of left field today.
Yeah,
this came completely out of left field. We thought that the Badgers were going to need to take some time to make a search to decide who they want to go after if they don't want to keep Jim Leonard. And there was a thought process. We don't necessarily want Jim Leonard after that loss to Minnesota, though he went 4-2 in the Big Ten. 6 Big Ten games, you go 4-2, even if you don't play Ohio State or Michigan, it's still not a bad record. But I think it was a spot after you go into hindsight 2020. This makes all the sense in the world for all parties involved. Luke Fickell is not going to be coaching Ohio State anytime soon. I don't see Ryan Day leaving for a long time from that program. So I think that's the one school that maybe years down the road, Fickell might leave Wisconsin for.
Right.
But at the same time, it is a perfect hire almost for Wisconsin, because they finally are going to get a top flight level coach who's coached a team to the playoff, a group of 5 team to the playoff. You're giving him the resources of a top 15 monetarily when it comes to money in the program. They're top 15 in the country. And I've got a feeling that's about to increase to top 10 because they made this hire. And I think especially it's the fact that they're going to finally break loose from 30 years on offense of what I call Barry ball, which is Barry Alvarez's style of offense, which is ground and pound. You can recruit all the offensive linemen you want from Wisconsin and across the country, and they've got great ones. You can recruit running backs to play in that system, and they've had great ones. I mean, up and down the list for 30 years, all the great backs from Ron Dane to, how long is this list now? how far they've gone with running back you in a lot of ways, but no quarterbacks, no
Right.
great quarterbacks outside of Russell Wilson, who was a
1
rental
year,
quarterback
Russell
for a year.
Wilson.
Exactly. And that, by the way, was the only year. If in 2010 or 2011 with Russell Wilson, the Badgers don't give up 2 Hail Marys at the ends of games, they're playing for the national title. They're playing for the national championship.
They looked really good that year. Yeah.
So it proves to you that what Wisconsin can do with a playmaking quarterback, a big play passing game, to add to Barry Ball, to add to this ground and pound philosophy, that's all Wisconsin has lacked. And if Luke Fickell can recruit that, the sky's the limit for Wisconsin.
Yeah, I've always had respect for Fickell's defenses, and what he did at Ohio State, what he's done at Cincinnati. But what's also been striking is the offense. And under Desmond Ridder, became a playoff caliber offense. So is it safe to assume he's going to kind of bring in his people, maybe get a transfer portal quarterback so that year one they can kind of hit the ground running and they don't have to play as much catch up?
I think they have to in a lot of ways, not just for its own sake, but I think as a test case to make to quarterback recruits, to show this is what you're going to be getting into if you're a 4-star, or if they can pull off a 5-star recruit to come to Madison. Now, they tried that with Graham Mertz. Yeah, bad experiment, but they thought, I mean, he was a 4-star quarterback coming in. But that's by getting a rental quarterback, if you will. I know that in our previous chat today, there was a discussion about JT Daniels transferring from West Virginia. Maybe. But whoever it is, getting a transfer portal quarterback to sort of use that as the pilot project that you can show to your recruits at quarterback, your recruits at the receiver position, to say, look at what we've got here. You can get to the NFL by playing our style of football. And they don't have to tweak a massive amount to the Wisconsin offense, but they have to add that big play passing capability to complement the ground and pound and make the ground and pound something that is a complementary aspect to a big play type of game.
Well, to that end, I noticed, so Mike Denbrock went over to LSU this year, but he was a large part of Cincinnati's successful offenses, which got them into the playoff. Do you think that there's any chance whatsoever of peeling him back to the Fickell fold in Wisconsin? Because I would say
him and Brian Kelly are like almost best friends.
Because I was going to say Fickell would be much more awesome to work for. If I had to pick 2 bosses and which one, like,
he was a groomsman of Kelly at his wedding.
Okay, well, that's probably out then.
Oh wow! And his relationship with
I didn't know
Fireball
that.
is really tight too. That's a joke.
That makes sense. That makes sense. But it's that type of guy that we're talking about. That type of quarterback transfer that you can bring in. You guys are going to know the names 10 times better than I ever could as to who they could go out and get. But it's that type of 30,000-foot view of what their pattern is going to be for this next year to showcase what they can do long term.
Any quarterback ideas for Wisconsin, folks?
I was trying to think of some.
These guys with NIL, these days with NIL, those names are out there. There's a lot. No one wants to be the backup quarterback. In the past, you could stockpile quarterbacks, but that's not going to be the case going forward anymore. Matter of fact, we're talking about the fact that we've got a great quarterback in Miller Moss. It's almost certain he's going to transfer. Well, I don't know. He's a special case because because of a Trojan family. He probably wants to be a grad transfer. But these guys, they have talent. They don't want to sit on the bench anymore. And there's a lot of them. And you get the right package together. As I was talking to Erica about Iowa, right?
Right.
Now, Iowa's a quarterback away, maybe an OC as well. But I mean, if you get the right quarterback,
definitely
in
an
there
OC
from these teams,
as well.
and then the NIL and the transfer days. But like Lincoln just showed you, you can turn this stuff around fast. And I think they could do that in Madison.
And here's what they can bring to the table in that NIL discussion. Within 2 hours of Milwaukee, which is 75 minutes from Madison, but within your biggest market in the state of Wisconsin, which is Milwaukee, and that also includes Chicago, because you've got the University of Wisconsin's alumni base in Chicago is as big as Northwestern's. It's as big as any of the Chicago schools. Within that radius of space, you've got 37 Fortune 500 companies. You don't think that they would want to grab a quarterback to be their spokesperson?
Yeah.
I mean, Russell Wilson was a spokesman for American Family Insurance, and they're based in Madison. That's just one example. I guarantee you, anyone who comes at quarterback to Madison is going to find that kind of a deal.
I always thought Cade McNamara, I want to see him start again. He deserves it. Worked his ass off for Michigan. JJ was a better player, outplayed him. I understand that. But he could take a Wisconsin or an Iowa, and I think bring them up and be that game manager / he can make some decent throws, and he can game manage, and he can manage the run game too. So, could he work at a Wisconsin and Iowa?
Oh, such familiarity because they're in the same conference. I guarantee you he could study up on things immediately. And in terms of getting used to what the offense is, he knows what's going to be there. That makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up too, John. I was thinking Cade McNamara. I mean, I don't know how tight Cade's going to be with Michigan program still, but yeah, no, I understand. I mean, it's a business.
Yeah.
He needs that career move, but
he got his degree. So that's what you really at Michigan. You got to get that degree, but now that he's got that, he could grad transfer to a Wisconsin or an Iowa, and then you still got your University of Michigan degree, but then you also have a master's in something. So then you're setting up your future as well after you're done your college and maybe NFL career. So
what about Jeff Sims from Georgia Tech? He entered the portal today. If you're looking for somebody with a little bit more like a higher ceiling, he's definitely more mobile. I don't know if he would want to move all the way up, up there. But I don't know. I've always found Jeff Sims as a very intriguing prospect. He was he was pretty highly touted coming out of high school. Never really got to hit his full potential at Georgia Tech.
That's true.
A change of do him some good, because I think he's a very physically, I think he's a very talented player, and in the right system could be a very effective player. So, and he's tough to deal with. He's mobile. I think he's got a good arm, and he just needs a guy that can coach him up. So under the right scheme, right QB coach, I think he could be a very good player.
what about recruits coming out of high school? Like, Tony, do you think there's any chance that the Carr kid would go to Wisconsin?
No, he's going to Notre Dame.
Oh, is he committed?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize that.
Very much so.
Well, we had some other coaching Jay, feel free to stay on. We have some other coaching carousels as well. Obviously, Matt Rule to Nebraska, I thought was a slam dunk hire. I thought Matt Rule was going to chill for a year on a beach somewhere with his $40 million. But I guess Nebraska made him a pretty compelling offer.
They gotta be patient with him though. No quick yank after 3 years. He's got to build this program up. So that's just
he's a program builder. It takes him a minute. I remember at Temple and at Baylor, like it was a 1 or a 2 win season the first year, but then he gets them to 9 to 10 wins a year. I think Nebraska would do pretty much anything to get to 9 to 10 wins a year, and they've proved that here.
I think but I think it's also been shown that the timetable can be moved up faster than 2 to 3 year rebuilds. those things are a thing of the past. You get the right name and like a rule, I think he can bring in some names. He's a name that will bring some clout, and he will be able to bring in transfers, to play with him. So I think that they can speed that timeline up a little bit.
Absolutely. John Sarian says Willie Fritz to Georgia Tech. Haven't been paying as much attention to that one, but I will say that the second they fired
that's what
they started doing better.
Yeah, it's true. That's what they're reporting Willie Fritz. I was a little surprised because the rumor mill, and this is not inside sources, right? This is just what we're hearing. We were hearing so much about Jamie Chadwell. I would be surprised to see him sit this round out. I think Matt Campbell has sort of taught everyone that you need to strike a little bit while the iron's hot.
Yeah, Matt Campbell.
I just made that comment in the chat, Tony.
Oh, did you? I didn't even see it.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. We're on the same page. Yeah, no, I agree. I'm with you on that.
How about David Shaw officially stepping down? Was it stepping down, or was it, hey, we want you to we don't that's its own question, but after 12 seasons as I think one of the winningest coaches at Stanford,
the winningest coach at Stanford,
the winningest coach, stepping down after 12 seasons. How about that? Did we think that was going to happen? I thought he would get another year personally.
I did too. So I actually watched the press conference that he did.
Okay.
I think it was a thing. I mean, I would guess that they probably had conversations with him. I think that Stanford, and I could be very wrong in this, but I think that Stanford wants to modernize and update their program based on what we've heard from the president to the faculty senate. I think that Stanford had a very rough comeuppance because they went to the Big Ten to join in the Big Ten with USC and UCLA, and I believe they were told no. And I believe they were told no by their own alumnus who has 3 degrees from there and was on their varsity field hockey team. And she is the queen of the Big Ten, and there was no room for her alma mater there. So she was also really very cold about it in the press conference. And I think it's caused a spark at Stanford that we may see them try to finally get up to the times. David Shaw sounded very much like it was probably something of a mutual decision, I would guess. They probably said to him like, hey, we have to change. Do you want to do it? Or do you want to take the time out?
Do you think, Tony, I believe it was mutual, but do you think it was more maybe had such restrictions on him, he wanted that maybe things loosened up there at Stanford?
He also, I think, was a little bit, I don't want to say burned out because he specifically said he wasn't burned out. If you guys haven't watched it, you should watch it. But he talks a lot about how in the NFL, there's an off season. And in college football, there's you get like a day off during the down week. And not just a week, just in the down week, you get 1 day off. And he said that he thinks that head coach years are worst only in president years.
I believe that.
As Obama aged 40 years in 8. And he laughed. He said head coach years feel about like 5 to 1. Every year is about 5 years, it feels like. And so I think that it was certainly very, very nostalgic and talk about how much he loved the guys and loved the school and loved the people, but just that it was time. And so
I think it's also because they can't have any fun. Is that part of it?
Yeah,
it could be that there's no fun. And
free the tree.
Guys, since they suspended their tree, they've not won a game and they lost David Shaw.
Damn right.
You got to free that tree right away.
Free the tree, please. Stanford. Stanford hates fun, and they lost to BYU for the first time in history.
Unbelievable. And
you want to talk about a school that doesn't want to lose to BYU? It's Stanford. So it was it's not good, but you want to talk about also a school that could rally more than anybody else. I mean, people talk about NIL. Do you know who went to Stanford? Everyone with Stanford has billionaires. Like your thousandaires are cute, but Stanford has multi-billionaires.
Yeah, they got cash.
they got cap. If Stanford wants to pay for players, they'll pay for it. But it may be a new world, and we may see what Stanford does. I mean, I think we'll see what they do with the hire. So, for example, if they go get what's his name from, I'm blanking on his name. I should remember the guy from Rice who helped build Stanford's whole intellectual brutality.
That was Bloomgren.
Bloomgren, yeah. If they go get Bloomgren, for example, then it says, okay, they're not really looking to change much. But I wouldn't be surprised to see them make a big hire, because remember, this was an issue with the Ivy League, is that these schools, Stanford is believes that it is the number one school in the world. Period, hands down, is what they believe. They and right up there with Harvard, they're, I think, number 2 in wealthiest schools in the world. And so they don't want to suck at things. They don't. They need to be excellent at everything that they do. And they suck right now at the thing that is the most public. And for them, it is not okay to suck.
Yeah.
And this is why the Ivy League, by the way, guys, in 1954, did its ratchet down, because Harvard and Yale were like, we can't suck at things. And so they pulled out. Actually, interestingly enough, Stanford and Cal tried to join the Ivy League when it started and were told no by Harvard. So Penn and Cornell Penn and Cornell said yes. We think Princeton said yes. I've talked to some historians. We're not sure who the third one was. But then Harvard stepped in and said, absolutely the F not. And ended that. So then they created the Pac-12 instead in the late 50s. So it's just a wild situation. But I think that Stanford is my personal guess would be, and I could be wrong, but based on what they said to their faculty senate, I think that they've had a kind of a come to Jesus moment, and they are going to probably make some more investments to get their program back on track, and it'll be good for them. It'll be good for the Pac. The Pac is winnable for Stanford.
I didn't know Stanford never lost to Marshall. That's new to me. I mean, sorry, BYU. Sorry for the
gosh, man.
I don't think they've lost to Marshall.
I'm already
either.
down because of what happened on Saturday. I did not need that, man.
What sucks is I can't laugh about the losing to Marshall thing, because Clemson did it back in Tommy Bowden's first year in '99. So I can relate to you there, Will. They came into Death Valley and beat them. So,
do you have any Barry Alvarez stories? He's beloved in South Bend. So do you have any good Barry Alvarez?
All off the chain type of stories. I mean, to give you just sort of a picture of what he was like, what he focused on so much. And I remember interviewing him. We had about a 90-minute sit down. Like right before he retired, we had a sit down when I worked back in Milwaukee at WTMJ. And he talked about just so much of the aspects of his career and so many different funny stories that came out. But the thing that I think really describes him the best was, I remember I did an interview with him for alumni, just at an alumni function before the 2010 Wisconsin-Ohio State game, when OSU was ranked number 1, going into Camp Randall at night, primetime game. The entire student body is soused. I mean, the whole fan base is drunk. And you know what that atmosphere is going to be. I'm interviewing Barry, and I'm really concerned about how in the world is Wisconsin going to be able to do what they need to do to put up enough points to win this game? And do they have to open up the passing game? And they had Scott Tolzien, the great Scott Tolzien quarterback, actually a really good human being. He ain't going to win you national championships. And Barry just came out and said something really simple but succinct. Jay, don't worry about it. My offensive line boys have got it. They're going to ride the O-line, and they're going to get a win tonight.
Sounds very Barry. That's
very Barry.
Yep, and wouldn't you know it, that's exactly what happened. Although they got some special teams help on the first play of the game, a kickoff return by David Gilreath that went coast to coast. First seconds of the game, and Ohio State was dead after that one. Just dead. And Wisconsin pulled the Tennessee, stormed the field, beating number one. And I mean, it was pure Barry. It was pure Barry ball, even though he wasn't the coach. You knew what was coming. Ohio State knew what was coming, and they couldn't stop it.
I'm ready to go, guys. That was a good bedtime
Yeah,
story for me.
yeah, that's listen.
I love Barry
hear that
Alvarez.
again.
Get out on the field and absolutely.
And
No,
now, now he wants to vacation the world. His plans are to go to Spain, to go to New
good
Zealand.
for him.
He's earned
Exactly. Enjoy life.
He was coach. He was AD. He's given
And,
so
you know,
much to
it's
that
probably,
program.
I mean, I could be wrong in this, but it's probably going to be helpful for Fickle a little bit for Barry to not always be in the country breathing down.
Yeah,
That's true. At the same time, this was, I think, the most telling thing about this hire today when Jim Polzine of the Wisconsin State Journal, I know I mentioned this in the earlier discussion, but for your audience, Jim Polzine, one of the beat writers for the Badgers in Madison from the Wisconsin State Journal, interviewed Alvarez just minutes after word came out. And we're all talking about Wisconsin has to go beyond Barry ball. They need to be able to play the big play passing game and add that to the run game for them to become championship caliber. And so it's like, well, they're departing from the Barry Alvarez philosophy. Barry Alvarez absolutely loves the move. He put his stamp of approval. He is the Don of Madison. He is the absolute Don of Madison. Chris McIntosh is the athletic director. They're letting him make his moves, but I guarantee you he still goes to Barry Alvarez for advice and for counsel. And for him to put his stamp of approval on a coach that may be different than the way Barry would do it, that says something, that he's got enough respect in Luke Fickell. That
Well, and I would ask, and you would know this better than I would, but like Barry Alvarez, because he coached a while ago, it's not like he was some deep ass backwards coach. It's just that was a different game then. And like, I think if he was coaching today, this is probably what he'd be doing.
You would think so.
I mean, maybe not exactly, but like, because I was talking to my dad about this, about, something and like some of the things that we did when my dad was coaching in the 80s and 90s may look more antiquated now, but they were absolutely like wild, cutting edge, spread the field stuff by the game standards then. And we were talking about stuff, and I forget what it was, but I was like, well, you would be doing that today. You'd be running the RPOs today.
That makes 1,000% sense. At the same time, Barry was so set in his ways, even during this period of time where RPO became a thing, where it became even more obvious in the 2000s. And Barry was coaching then, and he handpicked his assistant, Bert Bielema, to become his new coach. And he handpicked Paul Christ after Gary Anderson to be his new coach. Are you going to do things the Wisconsin way? Are you going to do things the Wisconsin way, the way I would have done it? And I guarantee you that had to be part of Barry's thinking. The Wisconsin way, the Barry Alvarez way, ain't going to win a national title. It can only get you so far. And maybe Barry's realized it. And maybe
Barry should have came to me for some advice, though. He should have came to me, and here's why. I would have told him, Barry, you don't go to Spain when you're 70. You go when you're 20 and 30 and single. That's what I would have told him. So,
that's actually a good point.
Yeah, the reason is it's actually his ancestral homeland. So that's the reason why. But otherwise, you nail it. You 10,000 times nail it.
I've been asked by a bunch of people now, how do I get on the panel? How do I take part in all of these wonderful things? Well, it's very simple. You join the Patreon. So we have here at the Voice of College Football, we have a Patreon. It's only $5 a month, and you can be a part of the panel for After Dark. You can also take part in our hangouts and watch parties that we do. And we talk football 24/7, 365. Mark releases a betting guide with 16 different media members, or however many media members it is. Every week it's a little different. There's a lot of media members on there, and they're all giving their picks for the week. So there's a lot of good stuff. $5, and that's also how to be on the panel. And just have a working camera. That's about it. Then you can join the knuckleheads. So
wait, I heard you also have to have an SEC bias. Is that true?
That's I forgot to mention that.
Okay,
That's right up there.
Just checking because I want to make
That's
sure we
just to
don't
get
get
on the
wild
Mark
cards in here.
show. That's to get on the Mark show. You can do the Patreon without the bias.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just checking.
That's awesome.
Yes, Larry. Yes, if you are a Patreon member, if you are an active Patreon member, and we can we have people that can check and verify and all that. But if you are, then yes, you can be. We do a roll call every week to be on the panel. I post the outline the night before or even the morning of, so everyone can contribute and be a part. Feel like they're adding to it if they want to add something. So absolutely, you can be on as a Patreon supporter. And we try to encourage new people every week. We like that. So wrapping up the coaching carousel with Auburn.
Can I add something?
Yeah.
So who do we think should take the Stanford job? I want to hear what you guys think,
that's a good call.
especially
Yeah.
our Pac-12
Should ask
boys.
about that.
That's a really good question. I don't have a good answer. I think they need a splash. I think they need a splashy slam dunk hire that's going to surprise people. And it needs to be somebody. I mean, they're not taking Marcus Freeman, but somebody that is like
Ryan
that.
Mason, special teams coordinator. He brings the energy. Every time we get a punt blocked, it looks like he's having a stroke. He gets so excited.
But they need somebody who can run a whole program. Is the thing. Like they need a Matt Rule-ish kind of not Matt Rule because he just took the job in Nebraska, but like a Matt Rule-ish kind of person who's going to build the program and fit in with their culture and their style.
Are we dogging on special teams coaches? I mean, look what Shane Beamer's doing. I hate to be the guy.
He's doing great.
Bring this up, but hey, Shane Beamer was special teams guy at Oklahoma. Worked for his dad. For a long time at Virginia Tech before that.
I mean,
if you get a guy like that, that's been around a lot of winners.
Yeah, he might be good. I mean, I think they need somebody that is going to solidly put them in a higher like with Fickle, like with Rule, where we're saying, wow, that was a great hire.
Like Deion
maybe
Sanders?
do that. Deion would not fit well at
I didn't think
Stanford,
Deion was that great.
But
at
if
all.
you guys think about the coaching upgrades of the Pac-12 as of now, so Kyle Whittingham is the longest serving coach in the Pac-12. Next, I believe, is Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly and Jonathan Smith both came in right about the same time.
That shows you the 5-year turnover. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody else has been completely turned over in the conference.
Thank God.
To build upon your point, Tony, the last great coaching splash that I remember Stanford ever making,
Harbaugh?
Bill Walsh.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
One of the
Exactly.
greatest coaches in the history of pro
Absolutely.
football.
He came back,
Stanford's
right?
one of
He was
them-
originally he was there in the 70s or something like that, and then he came back in the 90s.
That's
Right?
the type of guy Stanford is going to want.
Exactly.
There's no one out there, I think, that would drop an NFL job and go to Stanford. The only guy that I think I might consider who's not currently in the coaching carousel, whom they might even think about, and I think his age is too advanced for this now, is a guy like a Tony Dungy.
Yeah, somebody like that.
If Tony Dungy was 5 years younger, he'd be in Stanford tomorrow.
That's 100%. He'd be good for them.
But the one guy, I mentioned this earlier about the West Virginia job. It's a guy I thought about for the Wisconsin job, actually, before they made this hire with Luke Fickell, was Byron Leftwich.
Yeah, that one blew my mind when you said that earlier. I was like, that's actually interesting.
I've got no idea if he wants to be a college head coach. No idea. We know that with the National Football League, there have been so many issues with getting a black head coach into the position. And we know the frustrations that he's had, Eric Bieniemy has had. He's another name that you possibly could consider.
Eric Bieniemy would be good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you guys something also. So the Pac-12, as of last year, was the most diverse in terms of head coaches. But in the turnover, there is not currently a black coach in the Pac-12. Just in the turnover that's happened, and so it would be good for the conference, I think, to make sure that we rectify that, because it's not good that we went from the most diverse to zero diversity in the course of a year.
And there are great quarterbacks. They grow quarterbacks alongside the grapes to make wine in California.
In the West Coast.
Yep.
Well, now here's one. HR Pickup thinks maybe Clay Helton. He had a high graduation rate.
Hey, there we go.
Maybe Stanford might take a
Focusing on
nibble.
the academics.
Lord have mercy.
Absolutely.
You know what? I think he's better in Statesboro. I think that, although the Stanford Tree himself told us when the Stanford Tree was on the show that Clay Helton was his favorite USC coach, and he greatly missed Clay Helton. So maybe we could give the Stanford Tree what he wants.
Absolutely. Let's talk Auburn real quick as the last one, because I've been hearing that Hugh Freeze, they're not interested in him anymore because of character off the field kind of
Stunning.
stuff.
A bit, huh? Yeah.
A little bit. So funnily enough, I'm now hearing Urban Meyer. So
we really need, you know when a fan base sounds desperate and insane is when you hear the words, there's rumors that Urban Meyer, just whenever you start hearing that stuff, somebody's just lost their mind. He's not coming back to coaching.
Well, and the worst thing is
interested,
when your standards are so low that you've eliminated someone for major character flaws, and then you're like, but Urban Meyer wasn't so bad.
Yeah, no, this is real stuff. And again, can't take everything you say on Twitter at 100% or on you hear everything you hear from media. But so Urban actually said himself, I believe it was yesterday or today, on an interview that he has no interest in going back to college. He's enjoying his time at Fox, and honestly, like, that job seems a lot more chill than the daily grind
of Auburn,
of any college, major college program, but Auburn, yes, especially.
Yeah, like you guys discussed earlier, there is no time off in college football, and whether you like Urban Meyer, you dislike or you're just indifferent, the man does have some medical issues and a family that probably is very vocal in that. And although I bet you he's dying, just like any ex-coach would love to get back on the sidelines, I just think the grind of college football is it's not in his future.
All right, I just came up with my way off base brilliant hire for Stanford that they absolutely won't do.
Oh yeah.
You need a drum roll?
New Heisel. New Heisel.
Wow.
Just think about it. They won't do it, but just think
Let it
about
marinate. Let it marinate.
Let it marinate.
You want more 50 to nothings, don't you, Tony? You want more 50 to nothing.
Didn't he do USFL recently? So he was.
Might have.
It was either USFL or AAF or one of those leagues. I remember he came back. Maybe it was AAF.
Might have. Yeah, I don't remember. He's done a couple, but he's really smart. He was actually supposed to go. Was he going to Princeton or Yale? He was going to Princeton or Yale when UCLA stole him back.
At least he was smart enough to go to USC law school. So at least he got one.
He's a Trojan alum.
Yeah. Here's another interesting thought,
Yeah.
real quick about
Please.
Stanford. You want to make a splash? Mike Tomlin. He may not have much time left in Pittsburgh, but he's got two Super Bowl. He's got a Super Bowl where he can show off.
He did say there's no booster with a big enough check to make him go sit in 16-year-olds' living rooms, though.
He really doesn't want to go to college.
I kind of believe him when he says it, but you never know.
Yes, that's true. We never know. We never know.
The Steelers
You give the billionaire's check? Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Wills
The Steelers have a
also
history
a
of
good one.
staying with one coach.
Actually, I can see him being like, yeah, I've also met your girl from Theranos. No thanks.
Besides Bill Walsh, who's had a Super Bowl ring and then gone back to college?
Bill Walton. Just kidding.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, who's ever won a Super Bowl and gone back to college?
Short list.
Is there one?
I can't think.
I was thinking maybe Jimmy Johnson went back, but no, he stopped
No,
at
he
Miami.
didn't.
Can you picture a bigger culture? Can you picture a bigger culture clash than Jimmy Johnson at Stanford?
Oh my!
Oh my God, I would pay to see that. I would pay to see that.
The only bigger one would be Barry Switzer.
Oh no, I was saying.
Yeah.
I was. Oh my God!
I can see Barry
It might
Switzer
be
leaning
Jim
into it, though.
Harbaugh being to one might be the closest.
Yeah.
In recent years, he went to a Super Bowl and was one play away from winning it,
Yeah.
and probably
you
would win it in today's game with DPI.
Yeah, well, and if he won it, you got to think, is he back in college to begin with? So
Yeah,
it
No,
does change the
I don't think so. He
I'd
would have
flip a
probably gotten
coin. I'd like
another
to see-
NFL job.
God rest his soul, Bobby Bowden at Stanford. What do you think? How about that mix? You think
Oh my
that's gonna work?
Same thing.
Is there any defensive or offensive coordinators
Governor-
that could move to the
Schnell-
job?
Actually, you know what they need? They need Schnellenberger back with the pipe. That could work. I could see Schnellenberger tearing it up at Stanford. Oh, bless his soul.
I'm seeing in the chat that there's, I don't know if from Todd
Todd
Gwynn.
Gwynn super chat. If we can see if we can find that.
Sorry, we're sorry about that. That's definitely not. We definitely want to
Yeah,
We
read.
want to
missing
try
the
to
chat,
read
but-
every single one.
Yeah.
I was picturing that. I was picturing Miami's moving over to Stanford. I can't blanket on his name.
They say it was from an hour ago, so you might have to scroll up a little bit.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about?
We got one from Rhino Hunter.
What
Did we
if
do that already?
what if Stanford just stole Mario just for fun? Just
Did
for
we do this one
funsies.
already?
UW versus Clemson thoughts.
I assume he means Washington.
Yeah.
That would be a really interesting matchup. I would actually be terrified to see Michael Penix against Clemson's secondary who just got torched on Saturday. So, but that would be really interesting. Two really good teams. I think it would be a really good game.
And
Depends on
yeah,
which.
and their defense is
It's a
sneaky
really
good as
interesting
well.
matchup.
Their defense at Washington is sneaky good. I mean, it's not one of the better defenses in the country, but with that offense, they are a tough out. And I think this is what Todd's talking about right here. Is that it?
There it is.
Did we give hate to the Gamecocks?
Did we?
I'm trying to think. I said something about Shane Beamer. I complimented Shane Beamer like 5 minutes ago, but
Yeah, we said
Yeah,
Shane
all
Beamer's
we
doing
said
really
was
well as
great,
a coach.
Great job winning against Clemson, pretty much.
Shane Beamer's killing it as a coach. He's a really good coach.
And Todd, I want to be very clear with this. When I talk about losses by these teams to South Carolina, it's not as much as I'm giving hate to South Carolina. It's more of a factor of the fact that it's a great win for the Gamecocks, right? Because you guys did a great upset. I'm saying you must realize you guys are not a top 10 team, top 20 team, right? Maybe in somewhere get into the top 25. So when they do lose, it raises an eyebrow especially when you beat them by a lot, that how good that team is. If that's what you're referencing, I'm taking nothing away from the Gamecocks at all. Matter of fact, it's kudos to you. You guys are an undermanned team, and you took out I believe overranked team. But you had a great win. It has nothing to do with me. It's still a great win.
Yeah, and
I'm
the
not
other
sure
thing,
if that's
guys,
what you mean.
I'll tell you something that I do. And sometimes in the chat we kind of have this. There are people that believe that you either lick my boots or you're an enemy of the state, and like there's a middle ground, right? Like
There's nuance to this stuff.
you don't have to be the like grandest team of the world, or else people are enemies of the state. Like you can talk about what happened and acknowledge that like not for a team that is claiming to be a top 10 team, or a team that's claiming that they should be in the playoffs, to just get murder stomped by South Carolina is a problem that implies that team is not really a team that should be in the playoffs. And that's not a rip on the integrity of the state of South Carolina.
And again, I think you were in the chat with Mark earlier. I said that with the last two with you guys, what you're doing lately, beating Clemson, right, and LSU, not LSU, sorry,
That's great. And so Tennessee and Clemson
and Tennessee, that absolutely belong top. You
great
having wins
wins
like that makes you a top 25 team for sure. So
I put him in. We do the poll for Mark. I have him in I actually moved him into the top 25 this week.
Yeah, same. I have them at 19. Top 20.
I'll turn mine in soon, and I'll put them in. They'll be in somewhere, just for
Turn
you,
yours
Todd.
in. Don't forget.
Just for you, Todd. And we really do try to get to every single super chat. If we forget one, we're really sorry. Obviously, we're going through an outline.
And please let us know that
let us know. Yell at us. It's fine.
And to Todd, you guys, your win over Clemson was sort of put, as far as mine went. You guys fired a torpedo into Clemson's. They sank like the Lusitania in mine this week.
Yeah,
And you know what? And that win, or if you look at the Clemson side, that loss cost me third place in our pick'em poll. So God damn it, I'm mad about that game. So
you know what? I'm kind of happy about that because I mean I'm already struggling in our pick'em anyway. So any way to just ruin
cause chaos,
ruin
cause
your
chaos, agent of chaos.
Yeah, that's
John,
what we do.
John, I think you should do a little chest moment. You and Tide Guy and Exploring Ben. You want to break down the pool, how it worked out? It's over, right?
I think we have one more week. I think we do championship week.
Yeah, do we not do? Does championship weekend? I don't know.
I think
in ours, by the way, Tim was undefeated.
Oh, good. They're very nice.
In ours this week.
Yeah, Tide Guy's probably going to win the Patreon one, but I think we still have championship week to go. So you never know. Maybe someone else will sneak up there, but he's been ahead most of the time. But Jay, if you don't mind staying on, we're at our final segment, which is everyone gives their final thought about their team and where can people find you. And I would like to start with you, sir. Thank you so much, Jay, for coming on and being part of this and giving your insight and your years in Wisconsin football.
Thank you so much. It was such a blast to be there. Pregame show announcer for the network for a couple of years and sit next to one of the great voices, Matt LePay, one of the great voices of college football. And that's a pun unintended with the name of this great channel that we're on here. But I didn't go to Wisconsin, and we're a family of West Virginia fans because my wife is from West Virginia. Any of those who know our channel, Sorgy Stories here on YouTube, find us there. Yep. The kid is also a West Virginia fan. Anthony is a great West Virginia fan. But my team is Marquette University. I'm an alumnus of there. We're undefeated since 1960. I'm just sitting back enjoying it, enjoying the chaos of college football that happens every single year. So we're undefeated. So USC ain't beating us. Michigan ain't beating us. Notre Dame ain't beating us. Clemson ain't beating us. South Carolina ain't beating us. We can just sit back and relax and enjoy the beauty of, we went to the first Cotton Bowl and we stunk it up after that.
And now you have Shaka.
Yes.
You got Shaka. What more can you ask for?
That team is going to be something in a few years. They're taking over the footballist Big East.
I like it.
Awesome. Again, Jay, thank you for being on. Let's go, Will. Final thought about your team or in general, where can people find you?
Obviously disappointing against USC. Caleb won the Heisman. It was a bummer. But overall, there's a very bright future ahead for my Irish. And I'm hoping we can have a fun bowl matchup. Maybe South Carolina. Texas is who I really want, but they're probably going to the Alamo Bowl. But that would be fun. Me and Brandon, D4, talking it up. That would be a fun build up to that game. But yeah, also I wanted to do one more Stanford one. Steve Wilkes got screwed over by the Arizona Cardinals. And I think he would be a really good, nice fit at Stanford. So that's another one.
Solid choice. Zach T, thank you for your generous super chat. Here's to hoping for another Utah upset. We'll take It will take a perfect game, so you're giving respect to your opponent there. It'll take a perfect game, but it's possible. Go Utes.
Look at the
Great
amount.
Ute
Zach,
fan.
look at the amount.
is
That
great.
was a great
Zach, that
amount.
is
Wow.
awesome. Actually, Zach, seriously, thank you so much for supporting the community, but that is awesome. I laugh at that. That's great.
I love it when
love that.
I love it when people do that.
And can we have a silent prayer that Duddy is not the referee again? Amen. Okay.
Zach also had another
Zach, I
super
think you were on
chat.
earlier. Ute fans are awesome. I can't wait to see the Utes and the Trojans together in that game. It's gonna be fun with the U and the fight on.
Zach also said Willie Taggart to Stanford Lowell. So another choice right up there, Willie Taggart. You know, he's available. Why not? So thank you for that contribution too.
I just want to tell Mark real quick. I wanted to do a super chat, give him a super chat of the amount of yards Michigan got, but it got too expensive and I couldn't.
He's doing pennies.
Mark
Rushing yards of it.
Mark says
Wait,
no
no, just wait,
45-23.
Ben, just do the second half stat rushing. Oh wait, no, you can't do that. Never mind.
Still too expensive. You'd have to get like the Federal Reserve to supervise the funds changing hands.
It would be so big, it'd be NIL money.
Yeah.
Stop, you guys. Mark's gonna pull the plug on the show. Everyone stop.
I
Get
heard
off-
somebody-
get
I heard
off
somebody
the
in the
Ohio
chat-
State jokes.
All
I heard somebody in
right.
the chat say that Donovan Edwards is still running.
He is still, legend has it, he is still
Too far, man.
running
Too
in
far.
Columbus right now.
Hey, and by the way, let's give a shout out to the Daniel Henry who's in there, who is the only one of the usual Buckeye crowd who's not on a milk carton.
That's a good
The
point.
rest of those Buckeyes are on milk cartons right now. Daniel, seriously, Daniel, you get the salute of respect. Daniel, actually, you're awesome. You're always in chats, and we love having you. But you get the double respect for that.
Well, also Mark, Cheryl, there's been a few others who have come in and they've taken their lumps and they've been good sports about it. Still a few we're waiting on, but actually I'd say like 80% have at least come in. Charisse was in yesterday. So they've taken their lumps a little at least. TUSC, seriously going to miss Utah fans. They're my favorite and always fun. Yeah. Utah's awesome. I mean, we've played Utah. They're awesome.
They're awesome.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
The honeymoon's
that's always
over.
fun.
The honeymoon's over. The reel's going rogue. What has happened here? What has happened here?
Wait a minute.
We have
Wait a
controversy.
You know
Let's
what though?
go!
He probably means Kentucky Blue. This is probably a Calipari move. Probably a Calipari reference in there.
Oh man. This jersey is a Charles Woodson, who he and I have been interacting on Twitter a little bit because he was telling everybody, flood the timeline with stuff about Michigan and flood, and I was like, who's got it better than us? He said nobody, and then that got the most engagements out of any post I've ever done or anything. So that was pretty cool. So there he is. Tony, final thought about your team. Where can people find you?
Exciting to have the game over Notre Dame. It was a lot of fun, guys. No matter what happens in Vegas, all the Trojan family are excited about having the team back on track. Lincoln Riley, President Folt, Mike Bone, everybody just really, really doing it right for the fans, and they are so excited. So you guys can find me on Twitter, but most importantly, join us on Wednesday for the Pac-12 chat show, 10:30 on Wednesday night. There is a very, very, very special thing happening on that Pac-12 chat show this week. It's a special segment called LBC Unplugged. You're going to hear LBC channel the words of Aaron Sorkin and some other very, very special choice things in an episode of LBC Unplugged that you guys do not want to miss. So be ready.
You heard it here, folks. Sneak
LBC
preview.
Unplugged.
LBC
Wednesday night,
Unplugged.
10:30.
Wow. Okay. Well, let me get the USC channel in here, and I think you've already even posted the video.
It's already. You can find the video. Just set your notifications for it.
I'm imagining that you guys are going to have some things to talk about on that show.
LBC Unplugged has been in preparation for a while.
Oh, yeah.
He's had it ready for a
All right.
while.
All right, so let's go. Let's go, Tim, our other Trojan on the panel here.
Well, it's gonna be I'll tell you what, that will be the cream on the top, because it was a great week in the Pac-12, especially if you're a Trojan fan. But there was such weird chaos in college football in general, and that did not miss the Pac-12. So I'm sure it's gonna be a very lively show on Wednesday at 7:30 Pacific, 10:30 Eastern. Make sure you guys make yourself there. We are blessed and lucky to play the Utes again. And I'll give myself kudos. I called the beginning of the season and said we'd drop a game in Salt Lake City, and then we'd rematch them in Vegas. So I didn't get all the in-between parts right, but I did get those two things right. So it should be a great show Wednesday, and then meet us all after the championship game. Hopefully we can get Rick we can get him maybe live from Vegas. That would be awesome again for Friday night after the SC game. And Twitter, of course, for all your weird questions you guys always send me.
You're muted, John.
I respond to all of them.
I just posted your Twitter, and obviously we got USC football's channel in there too. And Jordan, final thought about your team. Where can people find you?
Well, guys, I'm barely holding it together. It's been a pretty rough weekend. I suffered a few disappointments. Obviously, Clemson losing, to their hated in-state rival, snapping 1,000 different streaks. The longest home winning streak this century. The first loss to the Gamecocks since 2013. All of that. So that was disappointing. My Titans lost today. That wasn't great. And T. Higgins caught the game-winning touchdown pass. So that was like an extra knife in the wound. And my stepsister and her fiance took the last of the lobster mac and cheese home with them without telling me. So I don't get to enjoy that.
Lobster
So
mac and cheese. Damn.
It's been a weekend of disappointments. I'm really struggling, but in all seriousness, in regards to Clemson, I'll keep it short. But there is a lot within this program, particularly within the coaching staff on the offensive side of the ball, that has to be reevaluated, because the talk has been about DJ Uyunglele and his play, but all of it doesn't work. I think there's just a disconnect between the coaching staff, the quarterback, the wide receivers, and there's just a lot lacking that used to not be so lacking in previous years, as far as talent evaluation, development at the quarterback and wide receiver position, play calling. So I think a lot of that needs to be evaluated. Obviously, there's not much you can change right now. DJ's still the starter. You still have the ACC championship game to play for. So I still want to win that. So I don't feel great about it, but there's still a lot to play for this season. So I'm doing okay. I'll be okay. The earth will keep spinning. The sun will rise up in the morning, and I will survive. But and it sounds kind of spoiled because I'm 5-7, but I'm complaining about a 10-2 team. So that is a luxury. I recognize that, but Twitter is right next to my name. Feel free to check me out there, and also subscribe to the Clemson Voice of College Football channel. Check me out over there. Me, Tiger Paw Craven, DeAndre. We do Clemson pregame and postgame shows every week. So if you're interested in checking those out, please do so. I think we're 4 subscribers away from 4,000. So even if you guys don't want to spend a bunch of time watching Clemson content, please give it a sub, because we're almost to 4,000. We're trying to get to that milestone. So I greatly appreciate it. And once again, thank you guys for tuning in.
Absolutely. And thanks for coming on and being part of this, but especially this week after what happened. You took your lumps, and appreciate you coming on. I know you haven't been feeling the greatest, so thank you so much. We're going to round it out with the Michigan squad here, and we'll Ben, obviously, it's been a great weekend for us. But
Great season. It's been a great season.
Yes,
I've been enjoying it, and I'm glad we get a couple more, few more games. I think 3, right? We're hoping. I'm going there anyway.
Possibly.
Yeah, so I'm looking ahead. I'm happy. Anyways, yeah, you can find me only here at the Patreon, on the Discord. You're not gonna find me on Twitter. You may find me on Mark's shows in the chat. You'll find me there too. But this is where you'll find me, and enjoy it. And anybody that's even on the fence about joining the Patreon, it is awesome. And we've had so much fun and on and off camera, and it's been great. And I've enjoyed this season so much more just because of the people, all you guys that I've met here, having the sports to talk about, and it's been great. I don't have to go out and do. I sit here from the comfort of my home and talk with you guys that are knowledgeable about sports. And so I've enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to the games that we have ahead, and I'm happy as can be, and I'm hoping we get that natty. Go Blue!
Woo! Ben, you pretty much said it all. So all I'm gonna say is, please hit that like button if you haven't already. Subscribe to Voice of College Football. I'm John Diadamo. You can find me on Twitter at John Diadamo. You can also find me on obviously this show every week, and Golden Blue Dude and D4 Sports. We do the Michigan review preview, so this one's going to be lit this week. I can promise you that. But as always, appreciate y'all coming in, and we will be back with you next week. Go Blue.